Good morning, everybody. Today, we're super excited to have our first guest on the BIM podcast. Today, we're talking to Ross Halfyard from Ottawa, but originally from Niagara region, who has maintained a crazy impressive run streak of over 7 years. Also, for those of you keeping track, we're on episode 24. Let's dive in.
Before diving into the conversation, I do just want to apologize for Ross's video quality. It's a little bit off, but it does not affect the great conversation we had with him.
I'm so excited to have a fellow one-trick pony here with us. We're going to be diving deep into his mindset, strategies, and lessons learned along the way, and his remarkable feat of consistency. He runs through those cold Ottawa winters and everything in between. Nothing can stop this boy in motion.
Yeah, it's absolutely bonkers. I remember when I ran the 7 day streak slash challenge when we did that follower challenge, and keeping up the consistency in running every day during that week itself was enough to have me questioning my sanity. So I can't imagine holding a streak for thousands of days. I can't wait to hear about how you do it.
Thanks, boys.
That's wild. Welcome, Ross. How you doing?
Good. Can't complain. Yeah, legs are fresh.
Let's get to know you a little bit for our audience here. So, can you introduce yourself?
Yeah, definitely. I appreciate you guys giving me a nice shining intro. That's good. Yeah, I've been running for as long as I can remember. My parents met at a run club, so I was born to a pair that, bound to send me in that direction. But yeah, did my first mile race at 3 years old and first 5K at 5. So I've been at it for a while, training pretty consistently since grade 7 in terms of competitive stuff. I joined my first track club then. So I've been at it for a good little bit. I've gotten away from my track roots, but the road running keeps me in it. And yeah, like we've been talking about a little bit, the run streak has kept me moving too.
Now, you mentioned the run streak. How many days has it been going on? And can you tell us a little bit more of what the rules are for your run streak?
Yeah. So in terms of days, I don't have exact numbers. I'd have to go back and use one of those calculators to count how many days in a year from a specific date. But yeah, I started it initially on my birthday in July of 2017. There have been 2 days that will eat at me forever where I dropped the ball. But the most recent of those was in September of 2020. So I'm over 4 years of no days missed. Yeah. So in terms of the rules that I've set myself, initially it was a minimum of 1 kilometer. I've upped that to a mile. I know, Andy, you're a mile guy, so that'll be good. Good call out to you. That I find keeps it just a little bit more. I'd like to have, even on the shortest of days, have that little bit further. But yeah, it has to be there and it has to be completed on that day before midnight. So I've had a few where I've been racing the clock. I know during my undergrad, I am a serial procrastinator and I would be working on papers late into the night. And at 11:45, I fly to the door in the darkness and sprint a mile all out, come back and finish the paper and submitted it way too late into the morning. But yeah, chasing that midnight deadline has definitely been a few of them. So
Yeah, it's hilarious. I always look on Strava. Every now and then there's like a run at 11:52, for example, and you run a 7 minute mile, just busting out the door, getting it done. So yeah, it's awesome to see. We're all cheering for you to keep extending that.
here's hoping.
So yeah, exactly. So what inspired you to start the run streak?
Like I touched on, I've been running for a while, and in my first year of university, I kind of got away from it a little bit. I was still running, but I was very inconsistent and just kind of going when the mood hit. And when I kind of look back, it was, maybe a run a week or something like that. I kind of got further away from the sport than I was happy with. And that summer, I had been working in a summer camp at that point in time, and movement and being outside is central to it. It's integral for that community to have movement, and I wanted to really bring running back into my life. I was a little frustrated with where I was at. I wasn't as quick as I'd been in high school. And, you always think the older you get a little bit faster. And I wasn't seeing that. So I knew that I needed to invest in consistency and having something sort of as a pillar. So I'd heard about run streaks for a long time, but a little bit before I got started, I came across YouTube videos from a gentleman, Hella Sidibe. I think he's hella good, is his Instagram and YouTube stuff. So he sort of put the idea into my head a little bit more. So yeah, I woke up that morning on my birthday. I would have been turned 19 that day. So I started that off and ran and haven't looked back since. So yeah, consistency is at the core of it.
That's wild. That's amazing. I think your birthday's on the same day as Brian. Just a sidebar.
Both July 24, guys?
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah, the only thing that separates us is, a couple thousand days of running.
That's it. Did you think it was going to last 7 years? Like, when you started that on your birthday, were you just like, hey, let's see where this takes me? Or, like, did you ever think you were going to be here today, 2024, still going at it?
I have to be honest, I don't know that 19-year-old me had a plan. I think 19-year-old me was very much so like, let's get fast and let's find any way to get there. Always I've chased speed and always wanted to see, okay, how many more seconds can I knock off? And it's, when I was younger, it was chasing a 20-minute 5K. High school was how fast can I get my 3K PB down to. I was lucky to have really fast teammates, so I always had people to chase and always wanted to close that gap. But yeah, no plan. Very much so went into it looking at keeping the consistency. And if it ended up not being the right thing for me, that was something that I was very level with myself about. I knew that I needed to be open to it, give it a go, give it a try, see if it worked. If it didn't, leave it, maybe get a coach, change that up, maybe hit the track more. But yeah, it sort of reignited a fire and it got me on the right path. PB'd my 5K, 10K and half that fall that followed. And it's led me to some good spots. Good races, good PBs.
That's awesome. And it's been exceptional being able to run with you. I know always at OCRC and you're wearing the hat branded up, but I always see you blasting off in the distance. And yeah, it's fun to watch somebody who loves running so much. And I'm sure it's a privilege that you get to go out and do it every day.
Absolutely.
But that doesn't necessarily mean that every day is easy. You mentioned that there were 2 days that you missed. And I'm sure there are other days where it's tough to overcome the friction around having to run every day. So how do you sort of manage the mental side?
Definitely, I think the biggest thing for me is coming back to why I run and what really lights my fire and keeps me going. And I kind of touched upon it a little bit, but I really want to see where I can push myself. And, all of us are kind of in a good spot in our lives when it comes to our age and our athletic performance. But one of these days we're going to be 95 years old and looking back at the glory days. And I really want to put myself in a spot where, the glory days were really pretty cool. I went and raced in some cool places and I ran some pretty fast times and, talk to the grandkids and tell them like, oh yeah, no, I used to run a 5K and this fast. See if you can beat the family PB. So yeah, I think on those days when it's real ugly, when it's really cold or, you're just super not up to it, bad day at work, whatever it happens to be, I think kind of really center myself on like why I do it and why I'm so happy to do it all the time. Bringing it back there is what really lets me be happy with it and really enjoy my time.
Geez, you're making me want to go for a run. Like, just jump out of my seat and go. Jesus.
We should have been doing this all while doing his daily mile. We should have all been doing the daily mile with him, I think.
A chatter mile, that would have been nice.
You mentioned family PBs. Are there, I want to dig into that a little bit. How many family PBs do you hold right now? And are there any that you're still chasing?
In terms of road racing, I own none. I have yet to catch and pass my dad, who is very proud to hold that. Every time we talk about it, he makes sure to get a little flex in. So I have not taken anything on the roads. I got a little bit more speed on the track, so the shorter stuff I've probably got him beat. I was pleased as a grade 10 to break 5 in the 1500 meters, so that was good. Yeah, maybe my 3K is a little bit quicker. I definitely have him in the 400 though. So one lap specialist for a year in high school, and I managed to get quick enough where he never touched the rarefied air that I was at.
That's wild. What do you chasing for the 5K, let's say, and the half? I know we chatted a little bit about that. The half marathon was a big token for your family too.
Yeah. So my strength in racing is probably in the half marathon. That's the one that I'm closest to. I'm right now a 123 guy, and his PB is 121.57. So I'm in the ballpark of it. It's not impossible. The one that scares me though, his 5K, he's buried way, way, way away from me. I'm in like 1830s right now, and he's a sub 17 guy. So I'm working at it. I need to have a big track season this year to close that gap a lot.
Yeah, that's wicked fast. It does mean you've got some good genetics behind you, having both your parents been runners, and that's awesome. Are they still running nowadays?
My mom, not so much, more on the cycling side of things, but my dad
A,
still in there.
a connoisseur.
Oh,
She is.
certainly. You'll see her around. She's a Niagara regular when it comes to getting out on the roads. So, yeah, big on that. And my dad still out there. He had a really good Ottawa race weekend this past year. Jumped in the 5K and ran. Actually, was a little frustrated because he underestimated how fast he thought he could go, and was in too slow of a corral. So ended up running faster than everybody around him and was running through people the entire time. So, yeah, hats off to him for sure.
I guess good problem to have.
For sure. I'd love to be faster than I want to be.
And as far as holding this streak, are there any habits that have helped you maintain this streak over such a long period of time
Yeah,
you can share with the listeners?
definitely. I think the biggest one is kind of working ahead to negate the tough days where I can. Some of these things I can definitely sort of plan for and get ahead of. Like a lot of the stuff when it comes to looking ahead at a weather forecast, if it's going to be minus 40 something, maybe it's looking at the dread mill, or really throwing on everything, throwing the toque on and a buff and ski goggles. But yeah, or travel. The other thing too is travel definitely makes things tough. Sometimes you're stuck in an airport for a lot longer than you want to be, and you got to find a way. So I've been known to get up much too early of hours in order to get out and get a run in, or get my mile. I always got to get that mile.
Yeah, and I'm sure it can't be easy every day. I thought travel might come up as one of the difficult topics, but another thing that I know you must be challenged by is injury as well. How have you kind of managed that?
Definitely. I think I've been lucky in itself to not have anything major. I've definitely worked through a few. And with that is definitely being realistic with where my body's at and being conscious of things. I'm definitely one coaches out there will be not so pleased to hear, but not necessarily warming up as much as they should or doing my mobility work. Most of the times when it does come to injury, I'm very much so the reactionary runner. Of all of a sudden, I find all of those bands and lacrosse balls and everything else that I own, and it's there and that I should use, but that I don't enough. So in order to kind of keep that at bay, I'll be very conscious in that, give myself, at least a few days in a row. And if things aren't improving, a few days in a row of miles, and making sure that I'm doing sort of a cross training alternative. If it's a lower impact thing, getting on the bike trainer, doing a swim, and then have the mile, doing something to keep my body moving and encouraging that, and then doing mobility and strengthening, stretching, keeping things and addressing that injury, but also kind of giving that the time. I find a mile is not the longest run in the world, and if you give yourself sort of that space and the pace to run it however slow you need to, then that's where it's at. I have it as a fixed distance instead of a time for that reason, so that I can, if I'm stuck for 10 minutes, that's different. But with the mile, it gives me the ability to run, fly out the door and run a 6 or 7 minute mile if I'm, pushed and pressed, but I can run a 15-minute mile, 18-minute mile if I'm really feeling down in the dumps.
I was gonna say it must be hard after, like I could just imagine after a race or some major event that you have, right? Like you work all this time for a certain date, performance wise, and then the days following it. I don't know about you, but the last thing I want to do is get on my feet and go for a run. But I guess kind of leading to it, you could do 15-minute mile if you have to, but you get it out still. And I guess it probably does help with with recovery.
That I've found it's a little bit better in that respect. I mean, at least measure it against racing shorter distance stuff the previous, but I've always enjoyed shakeouts, before and after races, but just really giving myself that license to be really relaxed with it. Ottawa race weekend full the day after, I was in a bad place. I was working through a very, very difficult run, but I made sure to get one foot in front of the other and wear the most cushiony shoes that I could possibly find in the closet.
Well, I mean, I would say you're probably the king of shakeouts to the shakeouts, so that would make sense.
Guilty as charged.
Now, with doing this run streak, but then also you seem like you have some pretty lofty time goals, and you also want to run super quick, do these events. And when Tyler told me you were running your first marathon at the Ottawa race weekend, 2 years May, like when you do these events, how do you balance the two between maintaining this run streak and structuring your training plan without having any days off for total recovery?
Yeah, I think that similar to the question about injury is treating my body delicately and giving it the time and space. I think that's very much so. We should always be listening to our bodies as athletes and being able to tap into what signals are being sent, whether it's a little soreness that kind of keeps, rearing its head for a few days in a row, being conscious of that and listening to it. But when I schedule things out for my weeks, I do make a conscious effort to keep one day a week on the shorter side of things, keep it, just a couple of K in order to give myself that sort of time. I definitely am of the thought. I love the origin story or the evolutionary story of humans being built and born to run, to knowing that, every day people are up on their feet regardless for different reasons. Just because I'm doing it a little bit faster than a walk doesn't necessarily mean that it's a bad thing for me. So I think building that in and having those big days, not quite a Christian Blumenfeld hero session type of day, but, having those big ones, massive long runs or, 8x K, crazy warm up and cool down, have those. And then having my days where it's, chill on the pace, chill on the distance, keep it short. And that, it kind of feeds back into the injury side of things. They support each other.
Yeah, and to have, such a consistent plan and the training that you've been putting in year over year, I can see that outside of just running, there's so much mindfulness that you have to have. You really need to have a deep understanding of your body and where you can push it to, and it's just something that you need to adjust every day. Looking forward in the calendar, because, you're running to race and there's some exciting races that we're looking forward to. What are some things that you're looking to add to your calendar, or are you training for something right now?
So I am kind of giving myself a bit of time. Just ran Hamilton full 2 weeks ago today. I'm giving myself some time away from the marathon. I've enjoyed exploring it and exploring the distance. I have a lot more learning to go. There's definitely time to come off with a really good training block and really nailing things down. But I think another key that I really like to address is keeping foot speed up at shorter stuff and shorter distances. So I've put my dad's 5K PB up on the cork board as one of the things to kind of take a look at. So come the spring, that's going to be a big focus. So I'll be doing very much so. I'm looking at it as like a high mileage 5K guy. So keep my weeks relatively long, but my workouts more focused on, really ratcheting down the speed and being able to get down to times that scare me right now, but are going to need to become realistic in time, because, you got to be comfy running into the 3 teens and 320s a K if you want to run under 17 minutes for 5K. So that's the reality of things, and that's where I'm going to get myself to. So come the spring, 5Ks, looking on the track, on the road, and then maybe back to halves and fulls in the fall and in future years.
I'll have to get on your heels because I want to break that 20 minutes. So I'll hit you up.
I love to hear it. If you have a race in mind, if it's somewhat local, and you're looking for someone to pace you, I would love to come out and try to help you break that goal.
That would be
after
awesome.
breaking it recently myself. So yeah, keep me posted what you're thinking for the spring season.
Will do.
Yeah, that next, I know there was the underground Ottawa BIM 5K, but that next and first official BIM 5K in Ottawa, there's going to be some spooky times by the sound of it.
Absolutely. The carbon plated shoes are coming out for this. They're fresh out of a new box.
And no gravel. We're going to be doing some nice straight roads.
I love it.
You mentioned carbon plate shoes, and that I hear those words, and my ears perk up. Tell me a bit about your shoe rotation to help you maintain this run streak.
Yeah, this one I'll catch some flack for sure in terms of the stables. There, I'm well stocked for quite a while when it comes to shoes. I've talked about my parents a fair bit, but my dad works in run specialties, so having shoes available has been something I've gotten used to for a while. So keeping a good stock of things and shoes with different roles, I guess, available, I definitely kind of have that going. So at any given time, I'm working between probably 3 to 6 pairs of like easy run, long run, daily trainer type of stuff. I like to keep a racing flat, like a true racing flat in the rotation, pre-super shoes. The fastest marathoners were running on just a few millimeters of foam and really pounding things out. So I find that really helps keep my lower legs a little bit stronger, my turnover being a little bit sharper. So I'll train in those a lot more. And then certainly there's the rather expensive carbon plated shoes that come out, but I do what I can to keep those for special occasions. I haven't gotten my hands on a pair of $800 Adidas super shoes or anything yet, but those on light spray shoes look pretty interesting too. So we'll see when it comes to the spring what ends up on my feet.
So I'm really interested to hear more about these flats. Are these a shoe that are currently in production? And could you give a shout out to any brands that are producing these very minimalistic shoes?
Definitely. The ones that I'm sort of leaning on now, Adidas has kept them in the rotation. It's sort of the side that I've liked to stick to. So the Adidas Adios SLs, I think they are, but as well the Adidas Adios. So very low stack, getting away from like really rigid carbon plates, very much just letting your feet and lower legs do a lot of the work. But yeah, those have been my go-to, and I've been lucky as well. I have a bit of a online shopping addiction, so always on the Adidas website as soon as those go on sale, and it helps when I have this many pairs in the closet to catch the shoes when they're $50-$60 instead of 150 or $200.
Tell me all the deals. I have that group chat notifications on literally for that reason. So I can imagine your rotation.
Yeah, I've got to get on the Halfyard email list here.
I'll keep you boys up to date for sure.
The newsletter.
Sign me up too. Always looking for shoe deals.
Definitely, it comes with it for sure. On that, I mean, the list is, well, the stables are long enough that I've established a kill list when it comes to the shoes that I want to get rid of. So I have sort of a chart that's all the way down and mileage listed beside it. So it's almost counting down to the end of them. But I want to clear some space out and get some shoes that have been around for a little too long. Pass them on to a new home or recycle them. Make sure they get to a good spot. But yeah, I have more than a few that I'm looking forward to stacking some winter mileage into, and then passing them along and getting some space back in my closets.
Geez, you're right. I'm stalking your Strava here, and you have a good 20-25 pairs logged in here. This is wild.
Yep.
That's something to be proud of. What kind of mileage will you put on a shoe before it hits its end of life?
That I try and be somewhat intuitive with it. Some shoes that are like more rigid, more durable, I can kind of get them up to 600, 700K maybe. But when it comes to the shorter stuff, anything with more pop, I tend to get maybe to the 350, 400K range, but very much so just kind of keeping an eye on things, knowing when I've blown through an upper, or, if the outsole is entirely smooth, then I'm down to the last little bit, have maybe a celebratory run if it's one that I ran a PB in, and then I can send it off to greener pastures. But yeah, it's the shorter stuff, the low stack, keep it shorter and be realistic. That's another part of the injury side of things. I do what I can to make sure that I don't overrun a shoe. I've seen people for sure, and my girlfriend is guilty of this, is running a shoe until you can see the color of the midsole through the bottom, or you can see the color of your socks. If you're getting to that point in time, then maybe you should definitely get into the next set.
So Ross, you're not the only one who's doing a very freaky run streak. I hear your girlfriend Claudia is also doing a run streak. What kind of streak is she on?
Is in and around, oh man, she'd be coming up on 5 years, because she started when COVID really kind of kicked off. She wanted, for similar reasons that I got in, she wanted some consistency and to kind of push herself to keep going at it in a time that was really uncertain for a lot of people too. You didn't have race start lines to chase. You didn't have run clubs to go out to and, really get super involved in. So it was a good way to kind of keep moving. But yeah, she started in March of 2020. So yeah, coming up, a few months away from 5 years.
That's superb. And I'm sure having an accountability partner, because we've talked about this on the pod before, is having people involved in your goals there every day pushing you and you pushing them just kind of builds that consistency to another level. Is that something that's helped you along the way?
Absolutely. And I think some of my most obscure, crazy, weird miles have come with or because of her. So making sure to get those in, it's definitely easier. And I look a little less crazy, running at 4 a.m. before a flight, or, running through an airport or on a beach in the middle of nowhere. I feel very much so happier to do it when I have someone to do it with me.
Totally. I remember seeing the pictures of the beach run. I think you were canoeing maybe.
Yeah.
And you're just doing beach sprints on like 100 meters of sand back and forth by any means necessary.
It's got to happen. I want to say
That
would have been 17 laps or something like that, of like a 100-meter stretch, and all sand. So not the easiest run of my life, and not the fastest at all.
that's committed. But I mean, you probably didn't have shoes, so you didn't have to wear the miles on the shoes. So
That was helpful. Yeah, those shoes were saved for a little bit more, a few more steps in them at least.
Okay, I hate to ask this question, but I am very curious to know. How do you see the run streak ending?
I'm gonna knock on wood right now. I don't see it ending, but if and when it does, it will probably be a sad day for other reasons. I'll have, I'm a hockey player. Who knows? Maybe I get pushed to a weird spot, going to the boards weird or something like that. Again, I'm knocking on wood ferociously here on my end, but yeah, I think it would take something pretty serious. And you honestly, with how crazy I can be, wouldn't be too surprised to see me in the hospital on crutches doing like a little limp mile. And, yeah, it'll take a lot. It'll take a lot for that to break and to finish. But I think on the more sane side of things, if at some point I find it's really more labor instead of a labor of love, I think that would be something that I'd have to be real with myself, and very much so harkening back to the 19-year-old Ross that, was just doing it to get started, and remember that it was about consistency and finding love with it. If I ever get to a point where it feels so much so that I'm just doing it to do it, and I've lost that affection for going out and enjoying what's around me, then I could see it going by the wayside. But I'm not there right now, and I don't see that necessarily being anytime soon.
Yeah, that's great to hear. I'm glad it's still a labor of love. You've got a lot of people cheering for you every day, giving you kudos on every one of those runs. So we're all here for it. And yeah, hopefully no injuries in your future that would ever stop you from, yeah, keeping up the streak.
let's knock on wood for that. That's for sure.
Big time.
Yeah, that's crazy. I just want to run through a couple of your stats here of 2024, just quickly looking at your Strava. So you got 9 activities per week logged easily, which is again, like you were talking about, you got to get your mile in per day. So sometimes you do two a days, mile here, mile there, mix it in at lunch. I've seen that also. Just your sheer distance of 2024, we have 2,800 kilometers, which is wild, and we still got what? You still got a month and a bit left, so you might be able to get close to 3, that's for sure. You have 242 hours of logged runs in 2024 and 13 almost 14,000 meters of elevation gain. So that's just a bit of the wild raw stats for all of our nerds out there. So just I'm just comparing them to mine because they do a side by side, and it's just embarrassing the difference there. But I won't talk about my.
I know. I run quite a bit, and I compared them to mine, and it made mine look small too. So I feel you. It's yeah, that's a lot of miles. It's impressive.
Yeah, see, I compared it to mine, and looking at my bike stats, we're nearly even. So I'm just glad that on the two wheels I'm close to you on your two legs.
Well, that I appreciate it, boys, and it's kind of funny that you bring that up. I took a peek today to see where it was at, and very much so like in a weird spot, kind of a lull after the fall racing season. So it's something that's kind of keeping me hungry for it. I kind of want to see if I can break 2,000 miles on the year. So that's 3,200 if you count the decimal points. So
Big miles.
I've got a ways to go. I'll have to get the miles up all the way into New Year's, but it's not the first time I've chased a year-long distance goal all the way up until New Year's Day. But yeah, that's I'll say it now here publicly so that I'm held accountable, and I'll have to go chase it and send the boys a text if I need support or someone to push the wheelbarrow if I collapse on the side of the road.
The way to do it.
When you finish that run for your whatever it is 3200th a kilometer, we will put out a Insta post cheering you on.
100%.
So that's we will be committed to that and giving you kudos along the way.
I love it.
Now, you've raced a ton of different distances, I think more than anybody else that I've spoken to, from 400 meters to the full marathon. I want to hear your kind of opinion on what your kiss, marry, kill would be for a 400 meter, a 5K, and a full marathon.
That's a hard hitting question.
Yeah, that one's really making me think. Okay, so you said 400, 5K, and the full. Okay. I think I'd have to go kiss the 400 because there's still a part of me that, is around, but I couldn't keep the interest forever. The 5 is a great spot because I love being able to race frequently. So I think that one's going to get the marry, and sorry to the marathon, but it's getting bounced. So that may change, but for now, yeah, the marathon's getting the boot.
No.
I'm hoping you get the marathon redemption, and in one of these days you'll just get the urge to race again, and you just get that perfect marathon race where it just all comes together because it can be special. And I hope it changes. We'll have to ask you again after your next one.
It'll come in time for sure. There's no way that I'm gone forever from the marathoning scene. I just if you love it, set it free. So I'm setting it free for a little bit, and I'll be back.
Yeah, I wasn't at all surprised in that answer. Like marathons to me, like I think a 5K puts you in this zone where yes, it might be the toughest race physically in some respects.
I hate it.
But the marathon is just a whole different beast because at some point there's just nothing you can do but be at total exhaustion.
All right. And if you've listened to the pod before, you know that we love our hot take segment. And this week, we're flipping it and we're asking you, what is your endurance run streak hot take? What do you want to leave our listeners?
This one's definitely something that can ruffle some feathers. It's something that I've seen discussed in a few other spots. When it comes to racing, oftentimes people will conflate going further with being harder to prepare for. Now, for me, it is way harder to train for and race a really, really fast 5K than it is to go out and train to just finish a marathon. Finishing a marathon, tons of respect, really, really hard. Been there. It's ugly. It's tough. But it is harder to run a really fast 5K than it is to train to just finish a marathon.
100%.
Yeah, completely agree. Doing those anaerobic sessions and pushing yourself in some of those to get that upper end, that speed is so hard. And mentally, physically, is just it's so draining.
Definitely. And from time to time, we'll get people that will question, like, well, you do 5Ks, like, you can't be that serious of a runner. It's like, well, yeah, I'm pretty serious of a runner. I run tons. I run more than marathoners run to try and get fast at this freaking 5K.
Yeah, and no matter what level you're at, if you're going all out in that 5K, I do think the last kilometer of a 5K, I know for me personally, is tougher than the last kilometer of a marathon. It's such an uncomfortable spot to be in, and it's also something that with time you start to get used to and crave, and that's why being fast at the 5K is something that I think we all aspire to be.
Oh yeah, I agree.
Absolutely.
It's wild doing these long distance events. I can concur that I actually avoid the 5K, and I just like to go long and slow, just long and slow all day long. The 5K is sheer agony once you get to those higher speeds, and like cutting seconds off is like a whole season's goal. While like, for example, a long distance ultra or an Ironman race, you could cut half an hour with just like not walking a little bit. Like, you know what I mean? It's just crazy the differences of how specific the timing is.
Yeah, and that's the 5K is a really intense sear, and the longer stuff is like a dull ache that's always there. You just got to hold it at bay.
Yeah, that's a very, very good way to take it. Okay, so I think to wrap this episode off, just want to thank you, Ross, for spending the time with us. It was great speaking to you, learning about what makes you tick and the accomplishments that you've already done and the ones that are to come. Hopefully you can, rip that 5K and take that banner home. I hope there's lots of PRs in your future. And no ERs as well. Tyler, you wrote a little takeaway for the community. I'm just going to read it out for everybody. Running isn't always about breaking records. Sometimes it's about showing up and staying committed. Ross reminds us that with the right mindset, even the smallest actions can build into something remarkable. Let's hit the road or the treadmill and keep moving. Well said, Tyler.
Thanks for tuning into the Boys in Motion podcast. Hope you guys enjoyed this interview with our first ever guest on this freaking podcast, Ross. Thanks again, Ross, for taking the time.
Appreciate it, boys. And I hope those PBs come your way as well. I know we got some lads looking at the around the bay and having a good spring. So may the PBs be plentiful.
Yeah, let's hope it's a good training block and that we can all just smash those PBs and get a little bit quicker through those winter miles.
And just one more thing, a shout out. If you are going to join Around the Bay, make sure you add the Boys in Motion team. So we got a big gang going, and we'll see. I might be signing up pretty soon.
Love to hear it. And yeah, don't forget to follow us on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and join our Strava club so that the moment Ross smashes past that 2,000 miles, you're the first to know. And subscribe to our podcast on Spotify and Apple Podcasts so you never miss an episode.
This is one we drop every week, but basically we are not medical professionals. Anything we're chatting about is based on our own experience and research. Do consult with a healthcare provider before you lock into doing a 7-year run streak.
Keep moving and grooving, boys, and see you next time on the Boys in Motion.